ultimate challenge is waiting.
Now you're playing with power, superpower.
In August of 1991, Nintendo finally answered the call to the fourth generation of video game consoles, releasing the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in the United States. It brought Nintendo into the 16-bit era of video game consoles, and to this day remains one of the best video game consoles ever made, especially with its impressive technical capabilities and its star-studded game lineup. Included in this game lineup is one game that some people tend to forget released with the system at launch, and helped make an impact on the video game scene as a whole by showing what the SNES could do. That game is the cult classic F-Zero. In this episode of Cartridges and Consoles, we'll dive into the Super Nintendo's first ever racing game, and show how its impressive technical aspects demonstrated what the next-gen console could pull off, but also how its fun and addicting gameplay made it a must-have for any 90s video game fan. F-Zero was a launch title for the SNES in North America, releasing on August 23, 1991. The backstory of the game, as described by the game's manual, is as follows, and I quote, "It is the year 2560, and due to the human race's countless encounters with alien life forms throughout the universe, Earth's social framework has expanded to cosmic proportions. The multi-billionaires who earned their enormous wealth through intergalactic trade yearned for new entertainment to stimulate their lazy lives." Am I going crazy, or does this sound way too accurate? Their wishes were met by a call for a new project based upon a seemingly simple premise. Why not hold, on a galactic scale, some competition like the Formula 1 races once held on Earth centuries ago? At once, everyone jumped at this idea. And with that, F-Zero was formed. As for the game itself, F-Zero is a racing game with high speeds and high stakes. You compete as one of the 20 drivers on the circuit, as you fight for a chance to stay alive in a 5-lap race, where if you happen to finish low enough, you are disqualified. Interestingly, your car has a power meter, which functions as a health bar, and the more you run into other drivers, walls, or obstacles, the more it will deplete. And if it depletes completely, you are completely eliminated. Thankfully, there's always a pit road area where you can recharge your power every lap, so you can save yourself if your power starts getting low and you're in a pinch. You also gain one boost power called an S-Jet per lap you complete, and there are obstacles scattered around the track such as jump pads, speed boosts, mines, magnets, and bumper cars. Your goal is to survive as long as you can as you race your way through all 3 Grand Prix leagues and 15 racetracks, each differing in size, shape, and difficulty. Now, by far, one of the biggest positive factors with F-Zero is how Nintendo tackled the racing game genre in the visual and graphic style. F-Zero makes use of a third-person view of your car as you drive around the track, which is nothing groundbreaking. However, with this being Nintendo's next-gen console, they use this opportunity to showcase something the Super Nintendo introduced: Mode 7 graphics. Mode 7, referring to the most complex type of graphic setting the Super Nintendo could allow for, allows the background layer to be altered to create different depth effects, meaning movement can be simulated across a 3-dimensional plane. In layman's terms, despite the graphics being 2D, it comes off as 3D. These Mode 7 graphics were one of the key selling points for the system, and F-Zero was a great representation of how this mode worked upon launch. The fast speed of your vehicle, combined with this eye-popping depth of field only achievable via Mode 7 graphics, helps cement this game's visuals as groundbreaking for the generation. Even today, this style is seen as the first step toward 3D graphics, and while there are other SNES games that made better use of Mode 7, F-Zero was one of the first, making it stand out amongst the crowd. Alongside these revolutionary graphics, the game is incredibly fun to play and offers lots of variance and challenge for every type of player. Take for instance the fact that you have 4 different machines or vehicles to race as, with each one having different stats and a different playstyle behind them. You have the Blue Falcon, driven by Captain Falcon, Yes, that Captain Falcon, which is the most balanced of the four machines and is an easy pick for first-timers. The Golden Fox, driven by Dr. Stewart, that packs the highest acceleration and power recharge rate in exchange for the lowest speed and durability. The Wild Goose, driven by Pico, which has the highest durability and likes to take out any racers within its path. And finally, the Fire Stingray, driven by Samurai Goro, which has the highest speed and grip of the field, but lacks the acceleration to hit top speed quickly. All of these machines can help make every race feel incredibly different, while also ensuring that you have different methods you can implement to play through the game. The game also has 4 different difficulty settings, ranging from the easy beginner class to the challenging and demanding master class, all of which can help give the most die-hard players a lot of replayability and challenge. This level of challenge is also showcased perfectly with the amount of technical skill required. As the difficulty increases, you as the player have to understand how to master all the ins and outs of not just your machine of choice, but also the racetracks, physics, and game mechanics themselves to come out on top. From forcing rivals to bump into you to increase your speed, to cleverly navigating corners and shortcuts, to even knowing how to effectively use your S-Jet boosts, F-Zero is a game that takes a long time to truly master, which means there is a high replayability factor. There's even some tricks in the game that I myself cannot pull off consistently due to the sheer amount of skill required to properly execute them. In other words, I have a skill issue. Wait a second, I don't remember writing that. Who changed my script when I wasn't looking again? Along with all of this, the game's controls feel very fluid and help contribute to the feeling of driving at high speed on these challenging circuits. Only occasionally have I had issues with my inputs on the L and R buttons not responding properly, but I take that more as an old controller problem than I do a game problem. The music is also really good in this game. With the SNES, more advanced sound effects were possible, and F-Zero used this as best as it could, with almost every selection from the soundtrack standing out. Though the game does have false advertising by naming one of their music tracks Silence, but it actually being, well... You know what? I'm okay with this. The world building of F-Zero is also very well done, with the included instruction booklet providing a lot of knowledge about the game's universe. I already mentioned the game's backstory, but there's also driver bios, machine specifications, and even a whole comic about the story of Captain Falcon, all within this one instruction booklet. Just the sheer level of thought and effort put into aspects outside of the game itself show how invested Nintendo was in making this a success, and how F-Zero truly is a grand experience. However, while the game is great in these aspects, there are a few factors that can hinder the experience. One small issue revolves around certain sound effects, most notably the ones that play when you're low on power or about to rank out, or both, which can get very annoying very quickly, and to this day keep me up at night. Another issue I have, emphasis on I as it can be more related to skill, is that the enemy AI in this game can be especially brutal. The opponent racers in the game have mastered the art of the rubber banding effect, which means they are constantly getting a boost from the game to catch up to you, no matter how far away from them you may seem. One mess up and you find yourself side by side with your opponent you realistically should have been far away from. In addition, while racing you have to be wary of the bumper cars that are lining the track, which can mess up your lines or even blow up on contact and heavily deplete your energy. Sometimes these so-called bomb cars will even stand in the middle of the road, giving you very limited time to react before you inevitably hit them. While having enough technical and fundamental skill means not everyone will have these issues with the AI, they still can leave a sour taste in your mouth, especially if you're a less experienced racer. The biggest issue about the game that I can pinpoint, however, is the essence of repetitiveness in the track selection. While there are 15 racetracks in the game, only 9 of them are unique as they take place in different locations. 10 if you count the one track that's an entirely different layout in the same location as its predecessor. The other 5 tracks, meanwhile, are meant to be more difficult variants of their predecessor tracks. While this does hold true for Deathwind 2 and Port Town 2, as those tracks are much more challenging to the point where they're considered some of the hardest ones in the game, the other 3 tracks sadly disappoint. Red Canyon 2 is pretty simple, despite being the second to last track in the game, and the variants of Mute City present at the start of every Grand Prix are basically one in the same. Like, for instance, the map for Mute City 1 looks almost identical to the map for Mute City 3, so much so that the in-game sprite map layouts for both tracks are exactly the same. Mute City 2 is the most unique of the trio, and all it does differently is insert a roundabout, which doesn't do enough to differentiate it from the rest, unfortunately. While I can excuse the fact that these challenge variants are so similar because the limitations of an SNES launch title may have been much stricter, these factors make the game feel a tad bit repetitive overall. In summary though, F-Zero is a timeless classic that was able to showcase the power of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System while simultaneously becoming a cult hit today. It's a very enticing racing game that does a lot of things correct, from its exhilarating gameplay, fluid controls, impressive visual style, and near limitless replayability. It may have some small issues with the brutal AI and the somewhat repetitive track selection, but even then, it still is a fun game to play, even over 3 decades after its initial release. If you're a Nintendo fan, this is a game you must try out for every single reason I've listed and more. And even if you're not a Nintendo fan, it's still worth a try, considering how great the game truly is. F-Zero on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System gets my rating of 9 cartridges out of 10.